Okay, this is the follow-up to the first video that I did where I was looking at the chance of winning on Sorare in terms of the various tournaments and which, based on the number of participants and the number of positions that pay out, as you can see here, which of these leagues or which of these tournaments you have a better shot. So go back, I'll put the link of it below, or you can go back and watch, but I kind of break all this down. But the gist of it is we see that something like Champion Europe Div 4 actually has the best chance of winning, as well as, say, Champion America Div 3 is quite good as well. Oh, I've done something there, there. And in Global All-Star, it's actually quite a low percentage here. So potentially just putting in a roster to get the 0.02 Ethereum, as opposed to trying to win this, given how many participants there are. So based on this, once you know this and you start to think, okay, here's where I'm gonna play a team in here instead of here, or I'm gonna go in this spot instead of this, or whatever. Then how do you construct your lineup from this? And what I do underneath here is just kind of map out my team. And of course, I'll try not to spend too much time on my team. Nobody really likes to just simply hear about someone else's team and roster moves, but hopefully you'll gain some insight from this, and it can apply to your roster building. So looking at this, I decided to kind of start with this best chance of winning league, knowing that I have a decent Champion Europe team. It's not great, but it at least has a shot. So I was going to go here first. So this is what I did. So down here, I built my Champion Europe 4 team. Basically, I've got not so great keeper, some nice young players to put in spot. What I learned is that I actually don't have a European Champion Europe forward. So in order to do that, I'd have to go out and buy one, and we'll kind of come back to this of whether I should or not. And ultimately, punching in their bonuses, I'm going to put Militao as the captain. I can find out what, basically, if the target is 351, which again, up here, we learned that for Champion Europe over the last 4 weeks, if you score 351 points, you should finish in that top 65 or around 65th. In order to hit that 351, if each of these gets 63 points, then I'll basically get there. And now, of course, not all of these are created equal. You might want to then play with this, put this up to 70, put Farman down to 50 or 54 or something. You can certainly do that, but it's more about just seeing like what the general group needs to do on average in order to get a number that you can win a card from. So we'll come back to this. I sort of put that in place, and then I go to, I know with my team in particular, I have a strong Challenger Europe side. I bought 2 Galatasaray bundles, so I'm going to go to that next, and the payouts are actually pretty good. 3 is a little better, a little stronger, so I'm going to go for it, even though there's a little higher amount of points required. But of course, the cards that you can win are a little better. So at Challenger Europe 3, I punched these in. So Marchson, Teixeira, Fernandez, Dervisoglu, Killing. And these are super rares. I should probably update this. Fernandez would be my captain. And these 2 are super rares. So when you punch this in, kind of similar to above, but 63 seems fairly achievable. These are all strong players. And that would get me to about the 377 that I need to score. That would leave me a number of players into Challenger 4. So I can also go into Challenger 4 and do the same and fill out some other players. So now Windall, Kokyu, pronunciation, I'm probably going to get so many of these wrong. Kirk, Onikuru, these are all pretty strong. Onikuru's been pretty good of late. And we can see kind of a similar number to get to this target of 350 for Challenger 4. Having said that, Kochenkov is unlikely to play. So if we give him a 0, we then see that we need, let's try 72. I forget what the number was. No, not even. So it's probably like 76. It's not even. So 78 if he doesn't play. So this is pretty unlikely. If he doesn't play, then it's highly unlikely I'm going to score here. So if I find out early that he's not, I may want to move 1 or 2 of them over. Maybe, I don't know if Killing's going to start. So I could put in maybe Windall. He's been quite strong all year. Kokyu has been great since he's returned. So this kind of gives me a sense of what are my chances based on the likelihood. So now that I have these guys in place, I'm going to move to Champion America. And this is kind of a different challenge I want to show you, is what about when you're choosing whether to put in a common card versus not a common card, and what points do you need? So you can do the same thing here. So in this case, I put in a lineup that has some strong MLS players, but 2 common cards, Cavallini and Galice. Now, when you crunch the numbers, in order to hit the target of Champion America 3, which is 348, you actually need scores of 81 because of how much of a penalty you get from those. So that's highly unlikely. Maybe Zimmerman can get there. I don't know, maybe Caceres, but there's no way all 5 of them would. So shifting over to another model where maybe I just have one common card, and that's Cavallini here. But I put Malia in place. Sounds like he's back this weekend. So if he does, great. These numbers come down a little bit. Now 72, still a bit of a reach, I would say. So then I go to this one here, and I have Wondolowski. I know he comes off the bench, but of course he's always looking at the goal. He can score a bundle of points in 15 or 20 minutes. So if I put him in instead of Cavallini, who would likely play the entire match for the Whitecaps, it really brings down the score that I need across the board to 66. So, yes, I'm sort of hoping that Wando actually can get a goal or so coming off the bench, but assuming he does, everyone else is sort of in a range that is at least achievable. Some of these are some top players. So this is kind of nice to show you just how much of a pull a common card actually pulls your score down and what you actually need to get. So if I have those in place, if I kind of feel each of these are here, I can actually, and also because I have more MLS cards, if I go with this lineup, I can actually also go here now into a second Champion America team, go into Div 4, and I've got McCarthy, Trusty Nagby. Here's where Cavallini would go, and Parks, and interestingly, I only need 67 because the target for that div is only 324. So it's actually comparable. Now you might argue maybe I should put this team in div 4, and it's got maybe a slightly lower payout in terms of the tiers of cards, but this would naturally go down a little bit by replacing Wando with Cavallini. But it gives me something, and I can look at something in the sort of mid to high 60s is at least attainable, and could be something to go for. So once I have those in place, then I don't have enough cards for Asia, so I'll skip that one. But then I go to my Global All-Star, because that's the one that I just mostly want to get the Ethereum, but I'm curious to see how it plays out. So if we go to Global All-Star 4, again, now I'm left with Galice as my only keeper, and then I've got these guys that are they're pretty decent, but in order to reach a target for scoring of 352 to win a card, they need to average 71. That's probably pretty unlikely. But what I can see is, in order to get the 0.2 ETH, the 250 target, they really just need a score of 50. The negative 48% kind of gets offset by these percentages here. So that really 550s, even with these percentages, kind of equal out to 250. So what's great is that I actually feel fairly confident these are decent players enough that I could reach that. And hey, if I fall short by a few points, I still get the 0.1. So I can go ahead. But having said that, this brings me back to the top again. And I wonder whether I need to actually go out and buy a striker here, and should I spend the money to do that, especially in Europe where the leagues are all coming to an end? There's only about 2 weeks left. Do I really want to do that? And if I'm going to spend money, I'm probably looking for someone cheap, so they're not necessarily going to be that reliable, and then just to potentially give myself a chance at this. The alternative is, if I don't enter this tournament, I can use these guys down in my Global All-Star. So instead of doing this sort of this okay side that'll probably only scrape its way to about 250, I could actually pull a lot of the guys from further up, and basically instead of buying a forward, I put Hankuri in there, and interestingly, I need about the same number of points. So 63 points was the same up here for each of them, and that's because the target for both leagues is actually 351. So this gives me a chance to actually win a card in this league, as well as win a card, but also hit that bonus as well, sort of cover both. I should feel almost guaranteed, if you will, a knock on wood, of hitting 250. And then these folks I'd probably just put into training or something like that. And then I played around even further, and this is probably where you're like, okay, enough about your team. But wondering if I kept these guys, what if I then instead moved this squad into Global All-Star 3, where the point threshold is a little higher, but obviously, again, you get a slightly better tier of cards. And so you need around a 66 from these guys. So I could choose either one. And if I choose All-Star 3, then I still have the option of putting these guys into All-Star 4. So I'm not sure. I'm still thinking about it. It's early Thursday, so I have a bit of time to make the decision whether I want to go out and buy a player. I'm kind of leaning towards no. One of the things that is a benefit of putting a strong side in here, even though I've spoken recently about not doing that, just hitting the 250 and go after the other tourneys. But one of the things I like is if we get to what are we looking at here? If we look at the if we look at the prize pool, so the difference between Champion Europe is in the top three, there's 100, 150, and 200 or 0.200 ETH, and you get this sort of tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 rare. Whereas if you go to Global All-Star, you can see if you finish in the top third, the Ethereum's much higher, and these are about the same, except there's just a greater threshold. So there's 130 spaces that you could potentially get into. So that to me, given that there's only 2 weeks left, I don't think I'm going to go out and buy a kind of a throw-in forward. Koulibaly was somebody I was looking at. He's fairly cheap right now. But yeah, not sure. I may just kind of go for one of these, or maybe both of these or something. We'll see. So there you have it. There's kind of my analysis. Hopefully you could take something like this and basically plug in the similar kind of numbers and basically every week just building your roster that way has made it feel less like I'm throwing darts at a wall and guessing which tournament I'm going to be most successful in. Okay, talk soon. The next video that I think I really want to do is actually break down Div 4 some more. And I have a hunch that there's a lot of people here playing for that 250 and actually have lineups that are nowhere near expecting to finish in that top 130. And I'd like to explore that further and just see if there is a greater distribution of people that land somewhere around that 250 compared to maybe some of the other divisions. So it might take me a little bit of number crunching. Again, I'm not a data scientist. It's not going to be fancy, but I'm going to kind of play around with it and show you what I got. Okay, thanks for listening. Talk soon. Bye.